after my countdown in 3, 2, 1, go. So, The Forgotten Sands takes place in between the first game and the second game in the Sands trilogy. It was made in 2010 to cash in on the fact that they had all that free publicity from the Prince of Persia movie. So from a running perspective, this game is quite different from the trilogy because it is in the Assassin's Creed 2 engine. And that's a fast way to die. So yeah, the original trilogy had its own engine called the Jade engine. This is a modified Assassin's Creed 2 engine, which means that, first of all, it's very broken in many good ways and in many not so good ways. And secondly, it also means that, well, it's just a lot of things are kind of cobbled together. For example, when you rewind time in this game, vases don't unbreak themselves and like that. So, like all the Prince of Persia games, the first 10 or so minutes here are just going to be efficient movement with a couple skips. We don't really have a whole lot we can do here. There is one larger skip in the introduction that is banned in this category, which involves jumping through a wall. But for now, we're just going to try to not repeat that death I had in the first minute of the run. So one thing I can talk about is you'll notice that I skip cutscenes incredibly quickly. The way I'm able to do that is actually something I set up before the game even, before the run even started, excuse me. And that is the fact that when you skip a cutscene with your mouse, the game actually recalls that decision, and from then on you can click yes, essentially, to skipping the cutscene without actually having your mouse on the button. No matter where you click, it will default to yes. So essentially I can now do all of my menuing with 2 button presses, which is very fast and very nice.
This reminds me of Azan. This also reminds me of Azan. This is looking worse and worse.
So one of the first things you'll probably notice that's different about this game from the last Prince of Persia you saw is that jumping is incredibly fast. In the trilogy, you actually can't jump anywhere you want to. You can only jump off of ledges. That is not the case in this game, and it is very fast. The one downside to jumping is that the prince will auto-target enemies, like those ones, and jump on top of them, which is very slow. So we don't always get to jump as much as we would like due to that. So a lot of the routing for this category specifically, since it's so movement focused, goes around making sure that you're not accidentally jumping into enemies.
It looks like I can grab on here.
We call these cobblestones. As you see, they're pretty slow, so we're going to do our best to skip those moving forward. Because I am on an NVIDIA GPU right here, I unfortunately have to talk about why I'm going to sit still on this beam. So if you go too fast through this section, you actually get a horrific graphical glitch that you can only get rid of by restarting the game from scratch. Pretty unfortunate, but it only loses like a second at most, so it's not a deal breaker. So as I said, this is no major glitches, not glitchless. So that first jump up to the platform I did there was actually a minor glitch. We call it chain jumping or consecutive jumping. And essentially when you jump more than once in a row, for whatever reason the auto aim gets a little confused and it will actually carry you up to higher ledges than it should. So we use that here and there just to skip a bit of wall running. Right here we'll do a little wall jump to skip all those cobblestones. And then coming up here we have a little, it's not really a puzzle, but a little platforming challenge, and then one of the larger skips in the introduction, which I will be using mouse and keyboard for. I typically play on a controller, but every once in a while I will switch to mouse and keyboard for very precise tricks. So right here I'm going to switch over. Take one step off this beam, line up the prince's leg, and by landing on this fence we can avoid the fall damage that would usually kill us. It's just high enough, and that skips about 20 to 25 seconds, I would say, of climbing, so it's very nice. Here's one of those areas where we can't jump as much as we would like because of the enemies. And here we'll see another abuse of that minor glitch, chain jumping, which will allow us to skip the cobblestones to my right. The chain jump lets us get high enough up on that wall that we can wall run to the top.
Those gates lead to the treasure vaults. I'll need
Whoops.
to find a way down there.
So there's a neat little skip right here. It's a little precise, but I did get it. So that wall run just skips climbing up on those pillars that were above me. Right here, these guys' AI loads in so late that we don't auto-target them for whatever reason. Then we're going to do a little skip right here. I say little, it's actually a pretty big skip, but it's a simple skip, I should say. So there I accidentally collided with the wall, which is another good way to lose lots of time throughout this run. Right here I'm going to do a death abuse and reload the checkpoint to skip sliding down the curtain. That saves more time than it appears because in this game we use a load remover for the official timing, so that would actually save a bit more time as far as the timer is concerned. Coming up, we have Treasure Vault Skip, which is the biggest skip in the introduction. This room casually has an unskippable cutscene in it, as well as a lot of climbing, which we're going to bypass by doing that wall run. And then doing a very specifically placed wall run right here. Okay, we got up here, jumped to this lever, and we're now at the very end of Treasure Vault. So we're now in our first, quote, trap corridor. This one doesn't actually have any traps in it, but it's a running theme throughout this game that there are these portals that lead you into another realm where there's a genie, and before every portal there's a trap corridor. So this corridor, or excuse me, this portal rather, takes us to get our very first power, the ability to rewind time, and also something you don't find in the original trilogy, the ability to absorb XP for upgrades. We will be using upgrades in this run for combat. We do get one sort of for a skip, although it's not required. In any percent, the early game is entirely shaped around getting enough XP to get pretty much the maximum number of upgrades you can get in this section, so that you can do a pretty large skip, but thankfully we won't have to do that in this category because it's a hassle and actually makes a lot of the segments slower. It just ends up saving time in the long run. So in this room there are several load triggers we need to hit. Spawning those enemies was the first one. Then this cutscene is the second one. Now I will try to do a rather precise skip. And it worked. So that just skips having to go around the other side of the room, essentially. There's another small one right here where I will jump left off of this pillar instead of going around. The downside to that is now I can't just turn around and proceed. I actually have to climb over to the right once like that. Otherwise I would jump back to the pillar. So if you haven't noticed yet, it's a common theme throughout this run that combat just doesn't matter in the majority of cases. Especially in any percent, but even in this category, we found a way to skip almost every fight in the game. Many of them you don't even have to try, you simply just don't do the fight. Coming up here we have some pretty satisfying movement in my opinion. These beams just line up perfectly so that we can move with exact jumps. So I jump right and then I just jump straight, and auto-targeting takes care of the rest. Just like that. This hallway also has some satisfying movement.
Perhaps these defenses do have their uses.
The camera angle there is a bit strange, and if you don't hold the direction through the cutscene, then it gets rather difficult to actually find the correct direction to swing. So while we're not doing anything exciting here for a second, I'll take this time to sell the fact that I've just created a tutorial for any percent of this game, which is chock full of glitches and skips. So if you like the look of this game, I highly recommend you check that out. You can find it on speedrun.com. We're always hopeful for new runners who will find new things.
So this is what's happened.
This is one of our first unskippable cutscenes. Actually, it may be the first. It's just demonstrating to us the sarcophagi, which are the only collectible in this game. They drop XP and energy, which I haven't talked about energy yet, but it's those blue gem things in the top left there of my screen. It's essentially this game's version of sand. It's what you use to rewind time, as well as use the other upgrade abilities. Here I'm doing this room completely in an unintended way by doing a wall run right there that's not supposed to work. Then right here I do a specific setup to get over here without raising the pillars and roll under just in the nick of time. Here once again we'll do this room in an unintended way by doing a very specific aim for a wall run right there. That is actually about 1,000,000 times harder than it looks. Yeah, I see in chat. I should also mention that we have a community Discord, which is a great fun place full of interesting people. You can also find that on speedrun.com. Right here we're going to reset the checkpoint to guarantee a good cycle in this tower. All the traps line up real nice for you if you reset at the beginning there.
How to chase him through the entire palace is more like it.
So story-wise, since we've been skipping all of the cutscenes, the prince is sent to his brother's kingdom by his father, the king, to learn how to become a powerful ruler, essentially. But when he arrives, the kingdom is under siege. And real quick, we'll take a second here to explain kick canceling. So right there, when I dropped from that height, I did not get staggered because I did a kick attack and then immediately jumped. It's a very nice little movement tech. And the guy who found it is a big fan of it, and he would be ashamed if I didn't call it out. So thank you, Epic Dude Guy. But moving on with the story, the kingdom is under siege by an enemy nation, and they're going to win. So Malik, the prince's brother, decides to unleash an ancient and evil sand army. Whoops. And the medallion that you use to both lock and unlock the vault that stores the sand army breaks in half, and the prince and his brother each end up with 1/2, which is how they're able to absorb XP. Now, the good genie that we met that gave us the ability to rewind time, she kind of like blessed our amulet so that we don't get all evil and crazy as we absorb XP. Our brother, not so much, so the power kind of starts to go to his head, and we'll see what kinds of situations that gets us into in the near future.
The army is getting more powerful.
So I should talk about combat, because we're actually going to fight for the first time in the game here soon. So the way this game's combat works is also quite a bit different from the trilogy. There is a combo system, so each consecutive hit does more damage than the last, and the combos are 5 hits long. And each hit can also be a charged, or what the game calls power attacks. So you just hold the button down until the sword goes shing, sparkle, sparkle. Right here I'm going to reset to try and get an interesting skip, which I failed to do. Do I jump for this? No, that's not going to work. I'll give this 1 or 2 more goes just to demonstrate it. Not sure why this is dropping too soon. Maybe I'm going too soon. So there we go. So, well, if auto aim will cooperate, we'll get our first sarcophagus here. So, a lot of people accused that of being a glitch when it was found, because you're using damage to cancel, or you're using a trap to cancel your fall damage, but that's actually not what's happening. In this game, as a kind of user quality of life feature, they made it so that when you get hit by things, you enter a ragdoll state, and in that ragdoll state, you can grab onto things. That way, when you get hit by traps, you're not immediately dead. You may grab onto something. And there, essentially, we're just abusing that fact to grab onto something a little bit lower down. So here is first boss, and that's not what I wanted to do. So here we charge up a level 5 power attack, which takes out the boss in 1 hit, because the charge attacks are very powerful. If I remember correctly, because I'm a nerd and I worked out all the math on this, the level 5 charge attack does 7 times more damage than a normal sword swing, and it also does 3 of them, so it essentially does 21 damage in total. Whereas if you compare that to a normal sword swing, which is what I used to define 1 damage. Whoops. Oh, that's disappointing. So the enemies spawning there actually reset my rewind timer because you can't rewind the spawning of enemies, because I'm assuming when they tried that it made way too many glitches happen. And then the auto aim caused me to jump to my death because I was too close to a wall, and it was like, oh, he's gonna collide with the wall. Let's shoot his jump at an angle instead. Just Prince of Persia things. So this is the only gear puzzle in the entire Prince of Persia anthology, as far as I know, at least in the 5 core games. 2 Thrones, 2K8, and the trilogy. This is the only gear puzzle that we do not know a skip for in any category. So if you're a completionist and that bothers you, why don't you pick up this game and help us find a way to get around it? So coming up, we have the big gear puzzle. This was the small gear puzzle. And in any percent, I explained there's a really big skip that you spend the whole start of the game preparing for. And it says to skip this puzzle, as well as the fight afterwards. So, fortunately, that skip didn't always exist, so I am very experienced with this puzzle. And under absolutely no circumstances should I pull one of these levers in the wrong direction. Okay, and right here we're going to go ahead and grab our first upgrades. We 5 and Ice Blast 1. So Energy 5 is what it sounds like. It gives us an extra energy slot. And then, that was interesting. Oh, so this is something fun we haven't talked about yet. The game can only rewind to, quote, safe spaces. So if you don't stop jumping, essentially, you never create a safe space because you can't stop in the middle of the air. So yeah, if you chain jumps, which you do a lot because it's fast, then you essentially can never stop rewinding. So Energy 5 is Energy 5, and Ice Blast is the most broken combat ability ever put into a video game, maybe? So you can see it just melts through these enemies like butter. It makes all of the other abilities in the game completely useless, essentially, in combat.
Got to get the medallion halves back together.
So if I'm remembering correctly, well, yeah, I'm not all-knowing, Sloa. Maybe there's a more broken ability out there. But yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, story-wise, the prince and his brother just had a chance to put the medallion halves back together to seal away the army, but his brother, being kind of taken over by the lust for power and whatnot, was like, you know what, I don't think putting the halves back together would fix our problem, and also absorbing XP feels really good, so, you know, I'm just gonna keep my half. Okay, thanks, bye. Oh, I should probably explain why I'm able to grab onto water. That's the power we got in our second portal. It's the ability to solidify water.
Can anyone hear me?
It's used for one skip,
Leave me here to die. Please, just let me out.
but not in this category. Right here we'll do a little precise aim for that skip. And then we have another one coming up like that that's a little bit cooler looking. I do have to agree with Eraser. The water ability does create some of the best platforming that I've ever played in a game, I think. It's very fun. Allows for a lot of unique level design. So here's the second jump. Get a little bit further in. Nope. Auto aim, grab me there. There we go. So that skips a whole lot of stuff, actually. There are like these cages on the ceiling, because this is a prison. And for some reason in this kingdom, they're like, yeah, let's hang our prisoners from the ceiling. That'd be fun. So you end up having to climb on those cages, and they start falling while you're climbing on them. It's a very tedious process, and that fancy jump I did actually skips all of that, even though it doesn't look like it does that much. So we're finally making our way out of prison. There's an interesting little skip coming up that's kind of RNG. Hopefully I'll get it just so I can show it off. So it didn't work. I'll give it a second try here just because it is a very neat looking trick. There we go. So that can work in one of two ways. You can wall run in both directions and you don't really have control over which direction you go. You just kind of hope it puts you in the direction that you want. It's debatable whether or not that's a glitch, but it's certainly considered a minor glitch. The reason it works is because when the prince enters the, or when he hits the bottom of a slope, he actually enters his standing up state for like a frame. And during that frame, if you're holding wall run and you're close enough to a wall, you can start wall running. Here we'll abuse checkpoint reset to save a little bit of time because that's one of the checkpoints that triggers about a second before the associated cutscene. Also, we just got introduced to a new enemy type. That orange guy is called the Summoner, and as you might expect from the name, he summons other enemies. He also has a very annoying AoE attack he does if you get too close to him. And he also has 13 health if you want to be spooked. There's literally no balance reason for that. No series of attacks in this game add up to 13 other than 13 individual swings of your sword. So I'm convinced someone did that just for funsies. here we have to climb up a bit, because if we don't, the prince will auto-target the enemies down below. Here we've got a little skip that usually doesn't save time because it's too precise, but it still looks cool nonetheless. We can skip all the climbing up above, or not really climbing, but just jumping around this room by getting a very precise jump on the edge of this thing. There, I got it. Just lets us jump up here. So the fun thing about the baths is that there's like 5 different ways to skip it. Fortunately, one of those ways works in NMG relatively fast. So this is going to be the first example I can think of one of the glitchiest things in this category, which is skipping load triggers. We had a little bit of a misplaced jump there. Let's try that again. There we go. So there are supposed to be waterfalls right here, which allow you to get across, but instead we have to do a little bit of a precise swing and a wall run there, but we get across just fine. I'll reset this hallway to make the cycles line up a bit better. Also, fingers crossed that it doesn't come up, but this game does feature a rather unfortunate crash. It has a tendency to crash when you reset checkpoint, which we do a lot. It's about maybe 1 in 200 is about the best estimate I've ever gotten, but we do reset quite a number of times each run. Right there I lined up for this series of jumps, which lets us skip this entire corridor. Looks pretty funny all the while. But that also skipped a lot more load triggers, so prepare for things to get awfully glitchy looking for a no major glitches run. Oh, this is the bad guy, by the way. This is Ritosh, the evil genie. This is the guy we unleashed when we let out the Sand Army. He's kind of like their leader. I think he may have created them, actually. Whoops. So, you know, no glitches to be seen here. Glitch-free run. Absolutely nothing wrong with walking on invisible floors. Because it's not my fault that the floor is invisible, Venive. It's Ubisoft's fault. So we're coming up on the end of the chase sequence here. That's what we call this area. Fun fact about the PC version, it never got updated. The console version's on like version 1.1. This is version 1.0. And due to that, if you die in this hallway, there's a reasonable chance that your save will become corrupted in a fashion such that you just have to start the game over. It actually happened to me the very first time I did a run of this game. I hadn't played this game since it came out, so this was like 5 years after release. And in this room, I just realized I couldn't continue. And I was like, oh, that's horrible. Maybe I won't get to run this game after all. But it turns out it only happens if you die in that hallway, which is pretty hard to do, so just don't be bad, and everything will be fine.
Oh, perfect. Now Malik can kill me for treason and breaking his astrolabe. No, I didn't touch it. It must have been the Sand Army.
Must have been the Sand Army. Coming up here, we have a fun little minor glitch. One of the more questionable things in this category, I suppose, but wall running through floors just looks so funny. Also, I will throw away a bit of time here for the sake of demonstrating something pretty unique. It only works in this room and only after you've turned that lever. We call that the long jump. So something about invisible geometry in this room wigs out the auto-aim, and if you jump at just the right angle, the auto-aim sends you flying across the room. You can imagine how alarmed I was the first time that happened to me in the middle of a run, and I had never seen it before. I thought I had found the holy grail, you know? I was like, man, if we could do this anywhere, we could, like, shave an hour off the game. But no, it just works in this room. Don't let my disappointed tone of voice fool you. I'm actually so excited to be here. Doesn't matter what category you're in, the observatory is disappointing all around. There are really no skips for this place, which is very unfortunate. So you're supposed to freeze water here to stop the platforms in place so that you can jump onto them. But I believe it was Epic Dude Guy who found a very funny little thing you can do here instead. Technically this saves a little bit of time because freezing the water delays the platforms moving, but it's a very minuscule amount of time. Oh, there we go. That's what I call a minor glitch right there. Now we're coming up on the second boss, which is super challenging. I might die here a couple times, to be honest. Luckily, deaths aren't that punishing in this game because of how quick the loads are and how frequent the autosaves are. Oh hey, what do you know? He's dead. Huh. A I'd like to remind everyone that we have ice level 1 currently. We haven't even upgraded it yet. So a very awesome skip I found in this room not that long ago. It's one of the newest skips, actually, in both of the main categories. Here we use pause buffering to pull off that jump, and that skips literally this entire room. It's so easy and so simple, but it saves so much time. Here before this boss, I will go ahead and get Ice 2. So, Ratosh has gotten a bit bigger. He's been, you know, doing his push-ups, drinking his juice. He just knocked our brother across the room, you know, showed him what he really deserves. But that upset us, so we're gonna teach him what for. So in any percent, you actually have the ability to clip through walls, which makes this entire fight meaningless, because that first phase where I, like, you know, attacked his legs and then jumped on his back, we actually just skipped that entirely by clipping through the wall behind him right now and exiting the fight area. In this category, there are a few extra steps you have to go to. So, some more story tidbits for you. We didn't actually kill him, our brother did. He swooped in and stole our kill so that he could get the XP for it. And he absorbed Ratosh's soul, which, you know, maybe not the smartest idea. Might come back to bite all of us. We'll just have to wait and find out, I suppose. So we've just, you know, another portal, another power. This power is kind of speedrunner oriented. Allows us to dash at enemies from great distance. This allows for bunches of small skips by just simply dashing to enemies sooner than the game... Yeah, we'll just wait it out. Sooner than the game anticipated. Really? Finally. That's not hard, by the way. I'm just really bad. Really, really bad. So right here I did a safety checkpoint reset, and what that means is I reset specifically to get energy, because when you reset checkpoint, if you have 1 or 0 energy, the game automatically gives you 2. You didn't swear? Eraser did. Eraser did a lot. So while we're preoccupied with climbing here, I'll take another breather from the game to talk about the charity. Everyone loves dogs, as far as I'm aware. I mean, I'm sure there are a couple weirdos out there, but most of us love dogs. So, you know, if you have a spare $1 or 2, contribute to that total. Try and help some of the runners meet their incentives, you know. Every dollar counts. Everyone loves dogs. Everyone loves extra speed running you know, like extra speed running stuff, so not much else to say on that, I suppose. Moving back to the game, this fight sucks in any percent because you only have Ice 1, but with Ice 2 it is much nicer. Right here in this little section, we've got a couple interesting skips. I'm not going to wait for this platform to return. Instead, I'm going to do a precise wall run cancel to land down here ahead of time. And then coming up, we have a really funny skip that I found on accident, actually. This little thing jutting out of the wall here totally doesn't have collision. You can just wall run through it. Nah, man, the swear words are the only things you need for English. Everything else is optional. Totally intentional damage boost, I promise. Here we get introduced to what I call genies, even though there are actual Jinn in this game, which, you know, are actually genies. But these guys look like genies to me, so I call them genies. I don't know how much health they have, because it's impossible to test, essentially, without cheating, because their whole purpose in life is to be dashed to, and they die in a single dash.
I have to find Malik. I have to warn him about Rataj.
They do drop, I think it's 5 XP every time you kill one of them, though, which is pretty handy, since you have to kill a lot of them just to progress the game. Go for the stupid skip just for swag. There we go. So that saved literally less than a second, but, you know, it looked cool. And that's really all that matters in speedrunning.
I've seen that attack before. I hope he can hold out against that.
Oh, something I failed to mention about the sarcophagi, even though I've shown it on screen. You can break them by jumping through them because they use the same physics coding as the vases. But you can't break them with a sword attack. You're actually supposed to have to use a power attack. But it's completely optional because you can just jump through them, which is much faster. Shoutouts to skipping the entirety of gardens with that simple jump. I use a keyboard setup for that. If you try and do it with analog stick, it is very difficult. But with keyboard, it is simple enough.
Where is Malik?
So Malik's been acting a little emo ever since he absorbed the soul of an evil Jinn. You know, he like put his metal faceplate down and he's like just running around killing things, and he's like growing in size, which doesn't seem super healthy. We're trying to have an intervention with him about it, but it's not going very well. Here we'll skip most of this area by doing those 2 simple jumps. And then because we skipped some load triggers right there, it'll actually slightly change the geometry of some things coming up, because they're supposed to break all cinematically, but they don't, due to our skipped triggers. And because of that, we can jump off of that statue and skip a very lengthy fight on that platform. So this is a fun bit in my opinion. There's a saw blade over here that you can wall run above to basically make almost any cycle work right here. It looks like we might have to care about it. Sometimes you just get to not worry about it. So we did have to. So I just think it's fun. That little bit of, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? That little bit of on-the-fly thinking, I suppose. I just enjoy parts of speedrunning that require that. Whoops. Oh, come on. So we get introduced to another enemy type here, the birds. They're just like the genies. Their only purpose in life is for us to dash to. Unfortunately, they do not drop any XP like the genies. So here we're going to pick up Power Attack Upgrade because it gives a 1.5 times damage multiplier to all power attacks, which is a pretty big deal. Then we kill the 2 summoners as quickly as we can, because we don't want them to summon any extra enemies. Now we're just going to swing at random until we get our next batch of upgrades, which we did. We'll go ahead and grab Ice 3. And now we can essentially just melt through the rest of these enemies like they're not even there. Here comes another batch of super glitchy looking stuff due to missed triggers. So this door, it's supposed to open before you get to it, so it actually just doesn't have collision. Fun thing. Now if I'm really fast and really careful, I can theoretically get through this hallway in one go. It took me 2 tries there, but we did get it, which is very nice. I think it looks really cool when you get that in one go. Here we're going to grab some energy in preparation of the next boss fight. So, this is Malik, aka Ratosh. They are 1 now. Our intervention didn't go so well.
Please, don't do this!
So, we can only deal with certain amounts of damage per phase in this fight, which makes it very slow. In any percent, we do a clever little thing with a newer glitch called wall storage that allows us to skip this fight entirely. But in this category, no such luck. So, if I'm correct, this should be it for this section of the fight. So they decided to change the pace up a little by putting a platforming section in the middle here. So we have to climb our way back up. So we're going to dash to Ratosh, which will stun him, and then we'll get our final hits in on him. And then we reset as soon as we see the checkpoint, because once again, there's like a... That's actually one of the bigger ones. I would say it saves like 5 seconds there to reset early. Now we're going to attempt to save like 3 seconds by doing something risky here. That looks like a good position though. So essentially we can wall run outside of the ledges in the walls. And that just saves us the time of having to like actually touch all of them, because there is a bit of animation time for each one of them. Once we get up here, we reset to line ourselves up.
Really starting to think the Jinn didn't want visitors.
Here we can do a nifty little corner jump due to auto aim. And now we get introduced to scarabs, which have 1 HP and drop 1 XP. I did a manipulation there by not moving. That causes the scarab to land directly on top of the little hole in the ground there. If you begin attacking too quickly, he will actually fly in a random direction, which makes the fight a bit more annoying. Pretty neat idea for a puzzle, in my opinion, but they only used it twice. This one and the one we're about to do. A little underplayed. This game had a lot of great ideas that just didn't get fully executed due to the limited time and budget that the development team was allowed. So fun fact about this puzzle, we did this for years thinking we had the fastest solution, and then some guy just comes along and he's like, hey, I found a way to do this puzzle 1 move faster. And the funniest thing about this whole story is that I still don't know how to do the faster version, and you've just witnessed the slow version. So we've got another trap corridor coming up here before our next portal. This one is pretty hard to do perfectly, but I am quite practiced at it, so hopefully I can show it off because it has some really satisfying movement. And also, if you guys in chat, please let me know what the timer says when I go through this next portal, because I forgot to start my timer.
Well, this isn't so difficult. You'd think Razia might
So we're going to reset here to get the perfect cycle. Okay, we got the corner jump. Timed that correctly. Roll under this. Jump over this. And jump over this. Nice, we got it. So yeah, if you could let me know what the timer says as I go through that portal, I'd appreciate it. So this power is pretty useless. It's memory Razia has given us access to her memories so that we can rebuild the crumbled parts of this area. 1 hour mark. Okay, I'm only like 40 seconds. Well, actually, I'm probably on par with world record because that's without load removal. So, this has potential for an RTA world record. Here we're going to reset for some energy. Now we get introduced to the giants. They always have the boss health bar, even though they eventually start getting used kind of like ordinary enemies, to be honest. Pretty soon we'll be able to get Ice 4, which is as high as it goes. After that, there's just not really anything we can do to speed up combat any further. So I didn't do the major glitch here, which is good, because in my practice I did the major glitch here almost every time, just out of habit. Fun fact about this area, in any percent, we still have to do that fight down there. We almost don't have to, though, because all these memory columns that I'm climbing on and stuff, even before the memory part of them loads, they're solid. But unfortunately, there's just the final platform in the sequence isn't solid, and you can't progress without it. So that hurts my soul. This platform right here. World's hardest jump right there. That trips a lot of people up because it's super easy for the auto aim to take you towards that curtain. I almost reset too early there. This room has a couple interesting skips, but there we go, between the various categories. The skip in this category isn't very flashy, but it does save a bit of time. Ah yes, the classic blaming lack of skills as being a glitch. So the key to this skip is to solidify that platform over there ahead of time so that the auto aim grabs onto it, which just failed to happen, unfortunately. There we go. So we could get that sarcophagus, but at this point it really won't help us out. Like I said, we're just about to have Ice 4. And once you get Ice 4, there's just no further speed up for combat. There's only one upgrade we care about other than Ice, and we'll have enough XP to get it by the time we need it anyway. This is a fun skip I found. If you jump off of this platform in certain places, you live, for reasons unknown. So we got to avoid climbing down there and instead just jumped.
What did I tell you? Not that you can hear me.
In any percent, we found a way to skip this hallway, which is the best thing that's ever happened in my life, honestly. And this category, not so much. So there's Ice 4. We won't be going back into the upgrade menu into the game. So we're now so overpowered that we can literally kill the giants before they get out of the ground, which is kind of funny. Unfortunately, no known ways to speed this up. You just kind of have to wait on the scarabs to spawn at their own pace. Here I'm going to go out of my way to kill these guys, not only because they spawn enemies, but because when you kill them, you get free energy. So here, just for fun, I'll go for this stupid skip. And we got it. So by jumping around that corner, you can save like a half a second to a second, but it's really easy to screw up and die. Nah, not really. Camera's fine. Right here we line up a precise jump to survive this fall, which allows us to skip a bit of platforming. Then we come over here to hit a load trigger to spawn these guys. Go ahead and take care of this guy real quick. So once he gets under half health, he is no longer a threat because he enters that kneeling pose. If I say anything about this game is better than the trilogy, then my community will disown me. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. Even though this section is long and you can skip it in any percent, I do find the platforming here to be kind of fun. With the back and forth between the memory and the water, I think it has a nice rhythm to it. So right here we will be resetting checkpoint for another hallway cycle. This one's really satisfying because we just walk the whole way and everything just lines up for us. Don't care about those arrows. Don't care about that swinging thing. Don't care about these arrows. Okay, apparently I care about those arrows because I screwed up, but usually I wouldn't have to. Skip these guys by jumping over this. Doing a drop down. So we can actually kill these guys just with our ice before they get out of the ground. And the best part is that we're coming up on a story-related combat upgrade, which is just going to make us preposterously strong. So here we can skip the platforming in this room by dashing to that guy a bit earlier than the game wanted us to. Whoops. So I solidified these beams, and I'm just going to jump straight to this one. I don't care about the other ones. Now we're going to solve this ridiculously difficult puzzle by turning this thing twice. Here we'll unsolidify the pillars so that we fall through them. It's a bit faster. And we get the Jin sword. So the Jin sword doesn't do much yet, but we're about to invite our good friend Razia, the lady genie, to hang out inside of our sword. Like you do. And now you'll notice that the Jin sword is shining. So the sword now has a 14 times damage multiplier. That's not a number I made up. That is a number that my science backs up. So yeah, 14 times more damage than we were doing before when we were already one-shotting most of the enemies. So it'll be just a bit before we get a good demonstration of how much power that is. But for now, we'll just continue to melt through things. Oh, if this guy hadn't been alive, that would have been a really good fight.
You know, it's rather unsettling to have one's sword comment on a battle.
It is also rather unsettling to see this world.
Good point.
So here we'll reset to get some energy back, because we do have a bit of a risky strat coming up here in a second that's brand new, actually. The Neve, who's been very active in the chat this run, just found this skip, I want to say like a month or two ago. It's very, very new and very nice. So the skip is on this platform. To do that, to get down here, and then to screw up your jump. There we go. So even taking 2 tries, that still saved a bit of time. It's a very neat looking skip in my opinion. So you'll notice that I just took that giant from standing health to dead in a single swipe. If that is a good enough indication to you of how overpowered we are at this point. The faster way to do that skip isn't reliable in any way, and should not be attempted under any circumstances. I'm Samuel Calhoun, and I approve this message. So we're coming up on the hardest hallway in the game here. I might reset on this one once or twice just to try and show it off, but my track record with this one is not great. I really need to practice it more. So here goes. 2 jumps. Animation cancel your run. Jump at a precise angle right there. Start jumping as soon as that pillar starts moving backwards. And we almost got it. I shouldn't have jumped into these arrows, but we actually managed to dodge that last pillar, which is the super hard part. So we'll call that a win, to be perfectly honest. Right here we've got a fun skip where we just do a wall run right here and auto aim takes care of the rest. Then here's a big fight with chargers, but I mean, we could kill them with like a single sword swing if we wanted to, so we just don't really care. Now this next room is pretty cool in both categories, in my opinion, for different reasons. So in this category, we ignore the fight completely and do the platforming puzzle as if the enemies weren't here, which I think is kind of interesting looking. We actually use the enemies for a bit of a skip because we're going to jump off of this curtain immediately, which should kill us, but because the giant is... yeah, there's that AoE attack I talked about earlier. Because the giant is so large, we can actually dash to him from a great height. So yeah. Allows us to get down just a bit quicker. Now we'll try and repeat that success. And it didn't work because I got hit, so the giant ended up too close to us, which is a bit unfortunate, but not a huge time loss. Now the enemies will despawn behind me. All natural and glitchless. So we're coming up on the end of the game here, and we're about to have some really satisfying platforming, so I'm gonna shut my trap as soon as we get to that. But first I wanted to take a second to talk about these blades. I reset checkpoint to manipulate these blades because they're actually randomly generated. This is the only spot in the entire game where the traps are randomly generated, and if you don't reset checkpoint, chances are you'll get a pattern that's nearly impossible to deal with. So yeah, I just don't even take risks there anymore. Alright, so this is where things get good. So enjoy the music, enjoy the satisfying platforming.
I'll try to remember that.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of that room. It's such a relaxing and enjoyable way to prepare for the final boss and the end of the run. Usually you're so stressed by this point because you're on a good pace and you know that one big mistake could ruin it all, and it just helps me take a breath and take myself out of the moment. So now we have one of the last skips in the game. Actually, it is the last skip in the game, now that I think about it. Where we're going to dash to a bird early, right after I get up on this platform. This isn't super hard, but it can be a little precise, so I actually use a keyboard setup for this. And I didn't quite get it there. What the precise part is actually when you jump off of this thing. There we go. So that still saved time, believe it or not, because it saved us a lap and a half around this room. So we have 5 energy, which is good. That means we don't need to stock up before we go into the final boss. Real quick, we'll grab our final upgrades of the run. So we got Health 1 and Stone Armor. Health 1's just a prerequisite in order to get Stone Armor. This cutscene's unskippable, so give my hands a chance to relax here. Stone Armor, essentially, it can be used for glitches, but it also passively, like its intended ability, is to prevent you from being damaged while it's active. And due to that, you won't get knocked out of combo. And we're going to perform a quick kill on the final boss, which is very easy to do if you have Stone Armor, because you can charge up your attacks way ahead of time in advance without the enemies being able to knock you out of combat. So now we're going to get into the final series of fights here. Also, for those of you who get motion sickness, I apologize. I am told that this section is really rough on people like you. Just jump to my death. So the reason I always have 5 rewinds coming into this fight is so that I have enough to do all the fights and a extra just in case something goes wrong. So, you know, as you all saw, something did go wrong. So it's that's why I always make sure I have 5. They give you enough bases to get 3 extras before you come in, so getting 5 is really easy. With this, we finally have a checkpoint, which is an opportunity to get more energy. Well, that's interesting. I pressed jump there, so I'm not sure why he dropped, but such is life. Well, I saw we got an energy, but we got a glitch where the energy never actually came to us. So there, it finally showed up when it was too late. But welcome to the final boss.
The army is draining my magic. You may have
Here's
trouble
a
using
pretty
the
good
powers I
example of
gave
how
you.
strong we are at this point.
Wasn't expecting Ratash
You'll
to make
notice
it
that
easy
I'm
on us.
currently not
Yes,
using
silver
Ice
is
Blast.
That is where you must aim.
Couldn't you pick
Not that it
somewhere
really
easier
matters,
to get to?
because they're all dead now. So we're going to charge up our attack and use stone armor to make sure we don't lose it. And you'll notice in a single hit, we took him down to under half health. So the way this fight is laid out is there are 4 phases corresponding to each quarter of his health. That's why it has those weird divider marks in it. And after each phase, he goes into a state where he lets you damage him. Because we've already taken him into phase 3, he's not going to do that for phase 2, which is a little bit faster. And then we're going to do something similar to that again in phase 3, which is going to take him straight to dead, skipping all of phase 4. So in total, that saves about a minute and a half. It was theorized for quite a long time, and it took me a couple hours of playing around to find the correct combination of attacks to make it work, but we're going to charge up a level 4 attack here, and then hold it with stone armor. Hit him with that, and now we just need to hit him with a level 5 attack. Time is coming up in time. So, yeah, that is Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands. But don't leave your seat just yet. I have saved the best for last. I have decided to finish this run off with the biggest glitch of all. Welcome to the final cutscene, now populated with dozens of enemies. And any moment now, yeah, there we go. Prince is dead. 1:27:33. 9 seconds behind world record. Well, that's all right. It's been an absolute blast, everyone. Thank you for watching. Like I said, there's a tutorial for this game. It's an absolute blast to play, in my opinion. And yeah, I would just like to say thanks to the other runners and thanks to the organizers for allowing me to run here. So yeah, that's it for me, guys. See you around.